Welcome back, guys. So we're back out here working on the Harley, and now that the engine's built, we're going to be working on the carburetor. So now with the engine being bigger, pulling more air in, we need to compensate that with more fuel, keep that air-fuel ratio where we want it. Now you do have the mixture screw on these carbs that can adjust it, fine-tune it, but for something this drastic, we're going to have to go in and replace the jets, and while we're at it, we're going to refresh some things. So let's get into it. Okay, so some of you might notice that this is not a completely stock carburetor. For the most part, it's stock, but I have done some modifications to it already. One thing is up here, we have this idle adjustment screw. As opposed to it being a Phillips, I have it to a nice thumb screw, which is a nice adjustment on the fly. And I also have the same thing down here for the mixture screw. So this allows, between these two, it allows some adjustments on the fly without having to get a screwdriver in there, which isn't always easy, especially when things are hot. So just helps a little bit. I also have this choke relocation as opposed to it going to the other side of the bike. This allows it to mount right up top here. So you just loop it right up and then it's right down by your right knee, I guess. This I had already done to clean it up, but now it would be a necessity with the new coil bracket that I put in because it eliminates the old location of this. But other than that, this is a stock carburetor as far as I'm aware. So a quick rundown of your basic carburetor parts here, right? You've got the body here. It's got that butterfly valve when you turn the throttle. Now underneath here is where you have your jets. You've got your main jet, which is in here, which is this guy. See, it's got a bigger hole. It's small relative to everything else in this bike, but compared to the pilot jet, which is even smaller. So the pilot jet gets tucked way up in that hole right there. So you have this bowl that goes in the bottom here. It fills with fuel, and as air comes in here, there's some holes down there that those jets go through and do it. So your pilot jet is mostly idle, and then your main jet is you start to give it throttle. Now you have the float, which has this needle on it, and basically as this fills with fuel, it floats up, and the needle plugs that hole, stopping more fuel than necessary coming in. And then, so now this is something that is specific to CV or constant velocity carbs. So the Sportsters came with these stock. Some people don't like them, they swap them out. Pros and cons to them. I think these are a very streetable carb. And basically what it is this is in here. This sits in here, and there's this vacuum chamber up top, and as you accelerate or give it throttle, this starts to open up and change the opening on this, which creates a constant velocity, hence the term, over top of the jets. Oh, and you also have, as you give it throttle, the twisting motion pushes this, which pushes this plunger, and here there's a little diaphragm, and that's your accelerator pump. And basically what it does is it squirts a little bit of fuel directly right into the back on the butterfly valve there to, when you kind of give it throttle real quick, it just gives it a little extra burst of fuel so you can go right off the line. But that's a very quick and dirty rundown of a carb. But these two are what we're most concerned with, but we are going to be kind of going through and replacing some of these things. I am going to take this diaphragm in here apart and replace it with a new one and stuff, just to kind of refresh everything. And as you can see, because I didn't clean this very well when I took it off, you can see what happens when fuel sits in the bowl. This is what happens if you don't winterize your bike and you just let it sit. And obviously that stuff is big enough to clog these tiny holes. But we'll clean this all out, we'll get this all refreshed. One thing to point out is that jets, I don't know if I can get these to be clear enough, but they have the size of them written on the bottom. So this is a 45 pilot jet, and this main jet, well, it almost looks like a 776, which is obviously not the case. But based on the fact that this pilot jet's a 45, tells you that this has been opened up and rejetted already. From what I've read, the best jets to start with the 1200 conversion is a 45 pilot, which is already in it, and then a 180 main jet. So that's what we're going to be doing. So now to show you this kit I got, what it came with. This came with 6 main jets, 3 pilot jets. This is the tube for the main jet, this one right here. So I'll probably take that and replace it while I have it open. This is the diaphragm for that accelerator pump that I was talking about, as well as a boot for it. And this spring might be what's inside it. I think that sits like that. Take a look. So we got all new hardware. We got a new needle, and then just a whole bunch of new hardware. We do have new gaskets. These are for where the intake meets the head. I already had these in the James gasket kit. In fact, I think the James gasket kit came with these as well, but since I have this whole thing with the jets, I figured I'd get it all done. So this is for the mouth of the intake. This is for the bowl. Pretty much everything we could need, so let's not lose that little guy. Those look like they're gonna be fun. This one's okay. These two don't look like they're gonna be fun at all. Really keep in mind that all this hardware, as well as these jets and things, they're all brass, so they're very, very soft. So you don't want to really torque these down, or you want to be really careful when you're taking things in and out, because you can very easily strip things. Carb rebuilt, we're going to pop this on, and that pretty much just slides on that boot on the intake. And in my case, I had replaced the intake before starting this project, so I got this, the Arlen-ness Big Sucker 2. Mounts a little different because it bolts onto those breathers and stuff, but depending on your intake, be similar, different, but that's what I got running here. Notice what I forgot? The gasket for the mouth of the carb here. Off it comes. so with the carb rejetted and back on the bike, we are that much closer to getting this thing wrapped up and back on the road. The last few things on my list are the ignition timing. We put that ignition in, we didn't set the timing. I gotta finish up the sprocket cover after I chopped this cam cover. I didn't do the sprocket cover yet, that's coming. And I gotta do the fender and obviously the tail lights that go along with the fender. I think that's it. I'm sure I forgot something. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But those are the main things left to do before this thing is roadworthy. So thank you guys for watching. Follow along for the rest of this build.